Hey, my name is Lizzie Smiley, and I absolutely love helping people connect with their calling and all the tools they need to kick roadblocks and excuses right out the door so they can cultivate the life they dream about. If you want to launch, grow, pivot, or scale your Etsy shop, or you've always wanted to develop the mindset and skills to run your own business, then I'm your girl. I've had that entrepreneurial spirit going strong since my very first lemonade stand, and now I'm a work-at-home mama with multiple online companies and a full-time Etsy shop, all while being present with my kids for the everyday chaos and most important milestones. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things business, mindset, Etsy, creativity, dazzling our customers, and so much more. There's plenty of room at this table for you, so scooch on in and let's go. I'm holding nothing back. Welcome to How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. I'm so glad you're here. Hey friends, welcome back to the show this week. I am so glad you are joining me. We are having another success story / training episode today. So I have with me Lauren Kilgore, and she is an accountant turned Wreath-Maker turned Etsy strategist. I love her story because she comes with all of the wonderful numbers background. She looks at things much more analytically than I do. She always says that she is really strong in the numbers and less strong in the creativity, which is so refreshing actually to see in the Etsy space because most of us are like the other way around, right? So she's going to be such an interesting person to hear from and such a different approach from myself and many of the other Etsy coaches. She helps creatives in all industries to open and market their Etsy shops through SEO and social media. She has been featured in various publications and courses, Jennifer Allwood's most recently, on many podcasts and spoken at several conferences and in Facebook groups. Her current resume stands at over 7,000 Etsy sales, close to 150,000 followers on social media, and over 1,000 students taught in her programs. She was picked by Etsy to be an Etsy U instructor for the past several years, and her shop is in the top 0.1% of all shops on Etsy. So we are going to hear a little about the wreath making business. We're going to hear about her Etsy journey. We're going to hear about how she has brought her background as an accountant into her Etsy journey, which is really helpful. And she just approaches things from such a numbers-based strategic way, which I know a lot of you are often asking for. And I love that. I love that she can tell you how to set up your business and give you that kind of advice that a lot of us Etsy coaches shy away from because we don't want to steer you wrong, but she's actually got the expertise to do it. So I think you will find her so engaging. She's got a wonderful story. It's always just fun to connect about how our Etsy paths weave themselves along. So please help me welcome Lauren to the podcast. Lauren, hey, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good.
I'm so glad we were able to do this, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my audience because you are super successful on Etsy, super good at what you do. And yet you and I we have like really different styles. And so it just really draws me to you. I'm like, that is so cool. She does that so cool. So thank you for taking the time to be with me.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I mean, we are in the same space, but we have totally different approaches. And, I just love to spread the message as, just like you do, as far as I can.
Yeah. What really jazzes me as like an Etsy coach is helping to connect like people who are trying to get started on Etsy or trying to troubleshoot or whatever. I want to connect them with the resources or the person that they personally need. Like I know we're all different, I've done enough, received enough coaching in different areas of my life and career that I realize that we all need something different. And I don't know, I know most coaches really love being the person, they're just like trying to find their people. I like being the traffic director.
Yeah, like the matchmaker.
Yes, I should say it like that. That's so much cuter. I always say traffic director. I should say matchmaker, Lauren. Yeah. You're totally right. I need to remind me that after I've given birth, because I'll totally forget. But like, I just love that. And what makes it really cool is it means I get to work with all different people who do, I get to have a totally different relationship with you than I would otherwise. So yeah, I'm super pumped. And I really want to start today with your Etsy story because I think that's where we all find our common ground together, right? Like everyone listening, that's just like where we get like in it together.
Yes.
So, but because I geek out probably the most on your professional background because it's so different from mine, can we start there? Like, tell us just your
Okay.
story, like professional background. How did you, and then like, how did you get into Etsy?
Okay. It's a strange story. It's not,
I love
it doesn't make
it.
any sense. But because if I go back even further, I went to college for psychology. When I got out of college, I realized I would have to go to a whole lot more schooling. So I decided I didn't want to do that. I ended up moving anyway, had to find a job, got a job in accounting, stuck with it, and then got my master's in accounting. Anyway, so I was an accountant for 20 years. Just strange path. Didn't think that was going to happen. So I was an accountant for 20 years. But during that, I did start a wreath making business because I'm just not someone who sits still well. And I needed something to do in the evenings. I came home from work and my kid's in bed and like, okay, what do I do? So I started a crafting business, and this was 2014, and my sister has a really successful Etsy business. She sells like invitations and like
Oh my
wedding
gosh.
stuff. So I just figured, okay, well, that's the next logical step. If you're selling handmade, that's what you do. So I opened up an Etsy shop and a Facebook page the same day. And I just thought, okay, well, we'll try and make a little, side hustle cash and, have fun and whatever. And then that morphed into, I guess it was my background in business and in accounting. And so the number side made sense to me. And whereas I need help on the creative side, I need people to teach me techniques and, floral design and all those things. The business part I get. So I can help teach, and I found myself helping people in Facebook groups and friends and fellow wreath makers and whatever, and who had questions on Etsy and how is this working? How do you be successful, whatever. And that's sort of turned into, okay, well, maybe I can make that part of my business as well, because, it just makes sense to me. And I was ending up doing so much of that teaching anyway. So I thought, why don't I put it into something more concrete and turn this into another part of my business. So I still make wreaths because I still think that that's fun. And I love to, I love to create. I love to have that creative outlet, but I do still have the business part as well.
So, did you craft a lot as a child? Like I know you said, and actually I can really relate to, I had to be taught. I had to really learn how to be more creative or
Yeah.
more like, actually make pretty art,
Yeah, that left brain, right brain thing doesn't always, work out for me. Like I definitely need, help on one side. But I guess as a child, I guess I did some but it wasn't a lot. Like I'm trying to think back. We did cross stitch, we did like knitting and crocheting a lot as kids.
Okay.
But that's about all the crafts I can really think of. I always
Do you
liked
remember
craft,
like
but
how you chose wreaths of all things? Because like that to me would just be probably the last thing I would pick up. That's why I'm
yeah,
curious, like what was the what was that path?
I think I just needed something for my front door, and I think it was like the start of that trend of people making like deco mesh wreaths. So like it was coming out
Okay.
at Michael's in like local stores, and I think I probably had seen stuff on Pinterest. And I thought, well, maybe I can just go make one myself rather than buy one. I always like to have one for the holidays on my door. I always did, of some kind. And I thought, well, maybe this year I could make one. And then I posted it on Facebook, and people were like, oh, that's really good. Maybe you should start selling those. But it was terrible. It was awful. I would never sell it now. I keep it in my garage for posterity. But,
Yes.
back then, it was a totally different environment as well. But, yeah, and so I just thought, okay, well, maybe I can try and make these and sell these. So I bought a whole bunch of supplies and I just started.
Lauren, that is exactly how my Etsy shop started too.
Yeah.
I literally I had a blog and I made signs for my daughter's nursery, the ugliest signs I have ever made.
I know, right? Our first
And I posted them because it was just content, right? You're like you're in your Facebook page, like marketing, whatever for my blog and building my little audience. And people were like, oh my gosh, you should sell those. I'm like, really? But they were really rustic. So I could kind of get away with it. And I absolutely still have them for posterity.
Yeah. That thing is not going anywhere. I'm not selling it. I'm not trashing it. It's staying in my garage so I can stare at it.
How many people have that story? How many
Yeah.
people literally someone told them, you should really try to sell those. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But I love it when it turns into a bigger success story like yours.
Yeah.
So, okay, so like let's like really jump into Etsy then. So, I don't actually know if I know this part of your story, so I'm a little giddy. Um the about like how your Etsy journey's been. Did you have fast success or was it a
No.
slower? No, she doesn't even take a
No.
deep breath. No.
No, because
Yeah, how
back
did that go?
then there weren't people like me and you to teach.
Right.
So, and that's what there just wasn't. They weren't around. There was a couple maybe, but there really weren't coaches, and it wasn't. Online selling wasn't a thing like it is now. So there was definitely not a lot to follow and model after and to try and learn from. So it was a lot of trial and error in the beginning. I mean, for probably the first 3 years, it was a
Ah,
struggle to try and get anywhere with, consistent sales, consistent followers on social media, anything, before I could figure out, what I needed to do. Yeah, it was definitely slow. Once I figured it out, it went faster, but yeah, it
yes.
was slow in the beginning.
Well, okay, so how did we go from all like I can just so, I can so relate because it was so hard to we had to piece everything together ourselves.
Yeah.
And you really had to have an endurance and you had to just stick with it, which is still true. Like
Yeah.
it's still true, but there are just so many more resources. But how did you go from that to which for 3 years? That's I'm so impressed that you just kept pressing. Of course, you were just also making them for your own fun. That is such a
Yeah.
healthy way to start because I always say if you're starting out of desperation because you got
Yeah.
bills to pay, it
It was
probably unless
different.
you have a background in e-commerce, it's not going to go well. You're just going to be so stressed. So I
Yeah.
love that you did it that way. But how did we go from that to a top 0.1% shop?
I think that's when a lot of the explosion online of coaches came out kind of on Facebook, especially like Jennifer Allwood. I know that we both
Love
have
her.
followed. But that was kind of when the coaching sort of industry I feel like that's when I was maybe more aware of it. And that's when a lot of, that stuff came to the forefront. And so I started with some business coaching in a couple different groups, couple different people, just trying to learn more about the business side. And then it was just, yeah, it was understanding the way that Etsy works and the way that they prioritize listings and realizing that they really love items that can sell over and over again.
Yeah.
And I always say Etsy's a handmade site, but that doesn't mean you only have to make one of something. And you'll do better if you can make more than one of something. It's a lot easier to do it because that's a sure sale for Etsy. So they're going to rank that higher. If they've seen that something has sold before, they will rank it higher. So I had a lot of my products that I could remake. I had ones that I could, I had some like wreaths that I could just swap out different signs or different bows or different ribbons. So I wasn't making 20 of the same thing. I was making one. I only had to store the inventory for one, but then I could list 20 different
Oh my
variations
god.
of it.
Yes.
And that got me a whole lot of sales in the beginning because I had more listings, I had more variations. I didn't have, that wreaths are big and
Yeah.
like signs are big. Like it's hard to have all that inventory sitting around finished. Like you just can't, but in order to have, a more successful Etsy shop, the more listings you have, it's a little bit easier. So I was able to make more listings off of minimal supplies. And so that helped me inventory wise, space wise, and it helped me in the Etsy algorithm for sure.
That is amazing. I think it's so helpful to hear that there's kind of a little bit of an aha moment that happens where things click and you kind of start to understand the not just the Etsy platform but how your niche operates in it because they are different and you do have to figure out and then you have to kind of figure out your corner of it. But
Mm-hmm.
then once you do, it's like rinse and repeat to a
Right.
degree. I mean, at some point, yeah, I've definitely had signs where I sold hundreds of the same sign and then it was my bestseller and then it kind of petered off and I needed to figure out what was the next one. And if I was smart, I was ahead of that curve, right? I was
Right.
figuring out ahead of time what the next ones were going to be, knowing that that trend would fade at some point that I couldn't necessarily anticipate. So I love that you shared that. So okay, I have to ask you, how has because I stink at numbers. How has your background in accounting like really influenced your Etsy experience? I'm guessing you approach this really differently because of the way you think. Um Please, because so many of us, I mean, Jennifer Allwood being one of them, right? Like, and guys, at some point, I don't remember what number, what she was on the podcast. I can't remember. It was talking about legacy and building multiple streams of income. I can put in the show notes what episode that is, since we've now mentioned her more than once. But like, I always related to Jennifer because she's just like, I'm more creative than like math minded or what. Now, I personally, I'm more marketing minded than I am creative or numbers. So even still though, I look at you and I'm just like, man, she's got some fairy dust in there.
Well, I think because you have to understand that an algorithm is really just computers. And it I want to say it's black and white. It's not really, but it's the business side of things is a lot more black and white than creative. And for me, in math and accounting, like, accounting, the debits need to equal the credits. In math, 2 + 2 always equals 4. Like, there is no gray area. And so that's how, approaching my Etsy shop and the business side of things, that's why, that part was easier for me, because that made sense to me. And like the creative side, we were like, you can make whatever you want. Like that, I know, you tell me what to make or what to do, and I will do it. Like duh. So yeah, so algorithms and just like, this is what you need to do and this is what works. Okay, just do that. Like, I don't know, I just think that worked better for me, because I wasn't, I would just figure out what worked, looked at the stats, looked at, followed trainings, and just did more of what worked, rather than just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, just like really digging into stats and numbers and product research and things like that to try and be more analytical about it.
I definitely did the same. I like, that's how I figured it out as well. But I wasn't looking so much at the stats. I was digging into, I looked at it, I came from the marketing lens where I was looking at who were the best sellers, who were the people who had figured it out. So it's just so cool. You know what I love? What geeks me out about Etsy and business generally, but especially Etsy, is that there's so many different paths to success. Like, there's not just one way to do it. And
Right.
I find that, like, some people maybe find that like overwhelming, like, well, how am I going to find the rabbit hole, And I'm just like, no, it means that there's lots of them.
Right.
Skipping through the meadow, you're going to fall into one of them,
Yeah.
Such a dork. Okay. So, what do you think are two really important steps for getting started on Etsy that you notice, like, cause you're a coach as well. So you're helping people every day. What do you think, like, that sellers tend to skip or do wrong that, or don't take seriously?
Yeah.
I would love some of your, cause you maybe approach that a little more analytically than I do. I'd love to hear what you think.
I think for sure product research. I know I mentioned that before, because it, rather than making what you want to make and making what will sell. Because I think at the beginning I didn't really understand, and I was just kind of like making everything and I'm kind of making what I want to make, and wasn't really thinking about what would sell better and what could I make into a better listing. Because when you have products that are cute but like super generic, it's like hard to set yourself apart. So, and then if you have items that nobody wants, or it's just not on trend or whatever, like, that's not going to get you anywhere either. I always say, like, one of my most popular wreaths came from a customer's suggestion. Like, so I always say that, rather than making your own thing, try and lean into what sellers are asking you for, whether it's on social media, whether it's at craft shows, whether it's in your DMs or whatever. What are they, or when you post things on social media, what's getting the most attention? And lean into that, because those are the items that for me, have always taken off. So rather than, trying to make just what I want to make, looking at what my customers want from me. And because like I make a baseball wreath, and I don't like baseball, sorry. But I don't like baseball. And somebody asked me to make one, and I made my version of one, and it's sold hundreds. And so
Wow.
I never would have thought to go that route. So it's really like paying attention to what's selling and what customers want. So I think that was, one thing that I think that new sellers kind of forget about. The other thing is really honestly not learning how it works. So not following a coach like you or me or any other Etsy coaches, or not learning how it works and thinking that intuitively that you'll be able to sell just because it's listed. And it's not like that. It's not Craigslist, it's not eBay. You can't just throw it up there and assume just because it's online that it's going to sell. It doesn't work like that. So you really have to dig into how to make it more optimized in order to get more more visibility in order to sell, because it's just math, it's just statistics, it's just views really. And if you can get more people to see your products, then you can get more sales.
It's so good. I absolutely love asking other coaches that question and just hearing, what are they seeing every day as the biggest mistakes. People shop on Etsy for the unique experience of getting something handmade, packaged with care, and just way more meaningful than an average purchase, right? And since we Etsy sellers are completely obsessed with our packaging, and we know how much thoughtful packaging improves our customers' unboxing experience, I am super excited to introduce you to the brand No Issue. All one word, all lowercase, NOISSUE, No Issue. No Issue makes eco-friendly, yay, and customizable packaging that is totally affordable for small businesses and Etsy sellers. Hello, next level branding for your shop. So that means that you can literally get a design that you created, something gorgeous you find on Canva, your logo, whatever you like, physically printed on your packaging materials. And if you're not naturally gifted at design, which is 100% me, they have great tools right on the site to help you do it. No Issue literally has everything you need for your packaging, you guys. Like, they have tissue paper, washi tape, polymailers, stamps, stickers, boxes, food safe paper if you're a food provider, and the list goes on. I couldn't fit it all here and not make this forever long. So y'all need to know that my clients rave about this company. It's the best way you can up your packaging game while also being environmentally friendly and set your shop apart by leveling up that customer experience. Not to mention your photo possibilities with your cute new packaging materials, like hello Instagram. So if you've been buying your tissue paper at Walmart and your poly mailers from Amazon, try No Issue instead. It's still affordable, it's so much cuter, and the earth will thank you for making an eco-friendly choice. Grab their link in the show notes and get ready to send serious happy mail to your customers. What do you think about, like, if you think back to the beginning of your Etsy experience, is there anything that you would do differently?
Let's see. Probably not. Only because I didn't know what I didn't know back then. If I could,
starting over today, like if you're starting over today, would you do like for example, would you choose wreaths all over again if you were starting again today?
The only thing about wreaths is they're so big and there's so much supplies. Yeah, the shipping is hard. Probably because there isn't anything else that like I really want to do and create. But yeah, my daughter has like a jewelry business, and I'm so jealous she can fit everything in her car. Everything, displays, products, everything to go to a craft show. And I have to rent a truck or a vehicle or whatever because I cannot fit wreaths and displays and everything else. No, but I don't think that there was anything I would have done differently. I think that it all kind of happened like it was supposed to happen.
Isn't that encouraging though, to look back and there are some things that I wish I could fast track.
Like,
the learning
for sure. Yeah.
But besides that, what about at what point did you add your own website? Like, and how do you drive sales there? I'd love to hear that angle as well, because a lot of folks, and I don't know if you coach to this too, and I'm sure I got this from Jennifer. What is to make sure that you're not putting all your eggs in the Etsy
Right.
basket. So
Yeah.
you've been really wise about that. Let's talk about your website.
Yeah, I was listening to her advice, I think, when I did that as well. And I think it was probably 3 or 4 years in until I made my own website. But I know right now I drive all my traffic to Etsy, so I don't get a ton of traffic there on my website. But I have it again just in case, just as a backup. And yeah, it definitely does not get many sales at all. But I do want it there as a backup just in case. Another place for people to find me. But it was a lot of work.
Okay, so you don't put a whole lot of focus on your website. You've just more kind of got it there.
Yeah, I mean, I do drive most of my traffic to Etsy. Obviously, being an Etsy coach, like I want to, drive my traffic to Etsy. But I do also, yes, as a backup, as another place for people to find me online. I do have my Shopify website. It's also, I don't sell any different products there, but I do just have it as, in case people were to Google it, that comes up also on Google as well as my Etsy shop. So.
That's helpful. What about, do you build an email list for your wreath buyers?
I was not good in the beginning at separating my audience. So unfortunately, all mine is together with Wreath-Makers and wreath buyers. So if I were to do that again differently, I for sure would tag them separately in my email system. But I didn't really know when I first started out. So they're kind of all commingled right now. But that would be a big advantage if I had done that. Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, you can always do that going forward. But I think at least you've got a big audience there in your in your email list to build from as well. I always encourage that being one of the first things that people should start doing, because that's, even if you don't have a website up, you could get one up pretty quick if you have an email list to email to. Okay. I want to talk about some of the tea, some of the drama, because I know. But can we talk about that mess that happened last year when that seller on Amazon literally like stole your gorgeous 4th of July wreath picture and used it all over Facebook and Amazon?
Yes.
Like what
It was probably multiple sellers, and they're all overseas. Yeah, they're all overseas, and they're doing that again this year. Not with my products right now, but if you look on Facebook, there's tons of Facebook ads where they've stolen other people's images and then like superimpose them onto other doors. And they even will sometimes keep the people, I've seen ones where people's like kids are in them, and like they just took them for their own Facebook page, and these scammers have stolen them anyway, and they're selling them for like a third of the price. Yeah. So they took I had a July 4th flag patriotic wreath, which is really popular, and I guess they figured that out. And so they stole it. And it's funny because they photoshopped it and they superimposed it onto a whole bunch of different doors and put this like American family in the image with like the 2.8 children. And it's like, yeah, buy from the USA. And it's like, it ships from China. But anyway, so I did buy one of them on Amazon. I think it was like $12 or $15. And I was like, I just want to see what I'm going to get. And it was half the size. It didn't look anything like mine. It was a piece of crap, but I just had to see. And unfortunately, yeah, it continues to this day. So everybody on Facebook, be careful of Facebook ads, because if it looks too good to be true, unfortunately, it possibly is. Sometimes I've seen they'll send people not a wreath. They'll send people a picture of the wreath. You'll buy what you think is a wreath, and they'll send you a picture. No. There was one where somebody got a pillow. It was a pillow with a picture of the wreath on it. It wasn't even a wreath. And they're so horrible. They're really, really bad. So yeah, if you're seeing a wreath advertised for $20, $30 on Facebook, it's not real.
Were there not reviews on that listing?
They fake them, and on mine, they stole my reviews too.
But on Amazon?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't on Amazon. where I can't remember what website, because it's also been on Walmart, it's been on eBay, it's been on Amazon, it's been on websites, but like on their own website, I've seen like they make these new websites all the time. As soon as I get Facebook to shut one down, they just build another one. But yeah, they stole my reviews and put them on their site.
Oh my gosh.
Literally.
Were you totally freaking out at the time? Like now, what do you do to handle that kind of thing?
I mean, I don't love it, but it doesn't matter to me for my business because I know I'm going to sell them regardless. I was more worried about the people who get them, who spent their
Yeah.
money and were expecting to get something nice and got something really bad. So that's where I felt bad. I wasn't worried about my business at all, but I did what I could, and there's a website out there. It's called Pixie, and you can submit your image and it'll like looks all over the web and sees where it finds that image and it'll give the URL for it. So while there, I was kind of tracking where it was popping up, and I could then contact those website hosts and try and get it down. But after a while, I was like, this is a lot of work I'm doing, and it's not, they just open another website. So after a while, I was like, all right, I can't do this forever. I just have to accept that it's, and then they've moved on to somebody else's products for Christmas.
Yeah,
so.
it'll be short-lived, right?
Yeah.
Can you just tell me, I've never heard of Pixie, and I want to put it in the show notes for folks.
Pixsy.
Pixsy?
Uh-huh.
.com? That's so helpful. That's awesome. Okay. I got it written down. Guys, it'll be in the show notes because that's fascinating. I want to go check out that site.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Okay. Okay. The other topic that I cannot wait to discuss with you is your Facebook and Pinterest strategy, because you do this so well. You have them, they're both influencing your sales on top of the Etsy algorithm. And that is huge for people who want to do, if you're not happy with what the Etsy algorithm is producing, you can take matters into your own hands. So can you give us some tips and ideas about that? And
so I think my traffic's about 50-50 between traffic I drive myself through my website or social media versus Etsy. And so, there are some Etsy coaches who are like, you don't have to do social media. You can do everything on Etsy if you want. And sure, you can. Yeah. But, you'll see that for me, I would be giving up half my traffic and possibly half my sales, if I just went, only on Etsy. So I think the best thing, the best tip I can give for Facebook is being consistent, making sure that you're posting every single day, making sure that you're posting content that your followers came to you for. So I have seen a lot of Facebook pages where they're just posting, they're either sharing other content or they're posting things that really aren't related to their brand. And that's not why people came to follow them.
Yeah.
It's not related. It's not, it'll get engagement, but will it get the right engagement? Does that, in the long run, is that really even going to help you? So I always make sure that every post I have relates to my brand in somewhat. And you can turn almost anything into an on-brand post. All you got to do is talk about, what it is you do just a little bit. And what was I thinking the other day? I was thinking about something about my car. I was like, I want to post something about my car. And it had nothing to do with my brand. And I'm like, well, I could just say I was on the way to Michael's to buy something for an upcoming project, and then all of a sudden it's about your brand again. It's about what you're doing. So you can really turn, anything into an on-brand post. You just really have to stay focused with it. So posting every day, keeping things on brand is what I suggest for Facebook. For Pinterest has changed their algorithm somewhat. It used to be even more of a driver of traffic than Facebook was for me. I think it's sort of flip-flopped now, but it still does drive a lot of traffic for me. And it's, again, staying on brand, having a place where people want to follow you for the content that you have, whether it's your own content or sharing similar content. And idea pins are just so huge on Pinterest right now in order to reach more audiences, new audiences. And I still have pins on Pinterest from 5 years ago that still come up and are still really popular. And they may not be the best photos or the best images, but that's the nature of Pinterest, is it being so evergreen that people can find stuff from years ago and things resurface like they don't on Facebook. So, it really is a great place to put stuff, and you don't lose the content. Like, it can keep coming up and up again.
Do you use anything like Tailwind or the scheduler to keep things circulating?
I do use Tailwind. Yeah. Yeah. Just makes it a little
A
easier.
really helpful tool. Yeah, you can just kind of set it up and then you're not having to spend constant time.
Yeah. And Tailwind will also analyze like when's your best pinning times and stuff like that. So that's helpful.
You like the data. You're
Yes.
enjoying the data.
Right. Yes. See, I told you I'm a numbers person, right?
Always comes back to the data. No, that's exactly why I love you. I mean, there's lots of reasons I love you, but as an Etsy coach, I love that you're very, very focused on the data and the analytics and the setup. Like
Numbers don't lie. Yeah.
Yeah. But some of us get our but so many of us need that coaching. So, and actually, this is perfect because I'm really excited for you to share about your Etsy course, because not only will it give our listeners like a really solid coaching about how Etsy works and how to position themselves, but you also have a whole segment about how those critical setup steps that need to happen, like even off of Etsy.
Right.
And I shy away from talking about stuff like that because I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax person. I don't have a background in that. And I would never want to steer someone wrong because it can be, it's very serious. These are very serious things. This is like where you shine. And so, I get excited. So tell us about your Etsy course, and then I will absolutely link it in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out.
Yeah. And people, this is kind of where I might start to lose some people because they're like, I don't want to do the boring stuff, but I'm very just a stickler about making sure things are set up right from the beginning.
Yes.
So it starts with making sure that you have the right paperwork locally that you need, because Etsy doesn't really ask for that stuff, but in order to avoid, problems down the road, fines or anything, you just have it set up right. So, business license, sales tax registration, EIN, things like that. And then it goes into literally, walking through the steps of opening a shop, putting, how to optimize it, all the different parts of your shop that are important to the algorithm, to your customers. And because there are parts of your shop that are really for the algorithm, and there are parts that are really for your customers, and there's parts that are for both. And you have to optimize all of them in order to have the most success. So we go through every single part of your shop and down to shipping your first items and things like that, so that you have that good foundation on which to build. So if you don't, if you start, like I said, if you start throwing stuff on Etsy, like it's not going to sell just because you listed it. So it's really making sure like the whole shop is built out and that you have that great foundation.
So, so this is really huge because so many people will come, they'll be like, Lizzie, I need someone to hold my hand for all of the business setup. And I'm like, I am not your girl. Like, come back to me once you want to understand how to position yourself and all of that. So Lauren is your girl if you are like, I really want to make sure this is set up right. And so many people do, Lauren. You're going to find a lot of your people here. I'm excited. And then what are the best places for people to follow you? And help me understand, do you kind of, is it all because you have two different kind of things going, well, three really. You've got how to make wreaths. Mm-hmm. You've got where you're selling your wreaths, and then you've got coaching people on Etsy. Is it all going to be the same places, or how do people follow you in like the proper, like where they want to?
My Facebook page is Beautiful Mesh. That's the name of my Etsy shop. So that's where I started making wreaths, but also teaching Etsy tips. And my TikTok is Beautiful Mesh as well. So those are my top two places. I mean, I have Instagram, I have Pinterest and stuff like that, but probably the top two places where I'm active most often are TikTok and Facebook. Okay. And that's where, I do have my website, which is just my name, Lauren Kilgore. But yeah, I'm giving tips all the time on both Facebook and TikTok. And I don't do as much teaching how to make wreaths because, like I said, I need the creative help. But I do often do lives while I'm making something because then we can chat. And then we can chat. Got it. So. Okay.
I think what I had misunderstood is you just have a lot of wreath makers following you about how to start their own shops. And that's why I integrated that. Okay, cool. Yes. So it's easy. It's all in the same place. Beautiful Mesh. I follow you on both TikTok and Facebook, and it's
Mhm.
super fun. I love when I see your stuff pop up because you always have such good ideas for content.
And it's
So
not just for wreath makers. Like it's
at
really for
all.
everyone. It just happened to be like that's because that's what I make. That's a lot of people that follow me. But there's tons of people in my community that make all kinds of different things.
Yeah, well, and that's like you're not really focused on the how to make the wreaths, so that's
Mhm.
perfect. This are just Etsy tips, and really for anything handmade, that's going to be
Right.
a great resource.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
so
very
glad we got to
universal.
do this,
Yeah.
Lauren. Everything you shared, this has been really fun, and I love your approach. And I love that we get to be buddies and bounce things off of each other. So, just thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and your generosity and sharing. And I
Yeah.
hope we can do it again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, I will talk to you soon, my friend. And all y'all listening, you go make something awesome. And that's a wrap on this episode of How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're looking for more resources, head on over to howtosellyourstuff.com, where you'll find podcast show notes, all the links from today's episode, the blog, courses, coaching, and more. If this episode was helpful to you, awesome. The greatest compliment I can receive from you is a rate, review, and subscribe on this podcast. Not only will it allow us to connect again on a future episode, it lets me know I'm providing you with value and helps other people find this content more easily. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. Have a great day and see you next time.